Hey everyone, welcome to my live stream. Thanks everyone for sending in all the questions this week. We'll address as many as we can as we go through. If you're watching live, please drop some comments below. If you're watching after the event or listening to on the podcast, feel free to like, share, make a review, all of those cool things. So today I wanted to talk about diversity and inclusion, which is always important, and there's so many things to talk about right now. So my friend Joanne Lockwood has kindly agreed to come on. So let me patch her. Joanne, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thank you, Lewis. Thank you so much for inviting me back. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure. We did one, was it just after the first lockdown? It feels like it was.
Oh, I don't know.
Around that time.
It's like a different lifetime. It's wherever that was last year. Who knows?
So much has happened since then.
It has.
It's been crazy. So I think to start, it's been, we talked about this off air, and just so many people have been impacted by COVID-19. And I don't think when we first spoke, we'd even comprehended just how long this was going to go on for. So for me personally, and we talked about this, I've got a young family, so 2 young girls. My wife's been working in hospital. So we'll talk about that. It's been crazy. But then the other thing is just so many people are in a different scenario. I've really had to learn to appreciate that.
Yeah, I've been talking about this since last March, like everybody else. And there's a phrase that keeps cropping up. Yeah, same storm, different boats. It's recognizing that our lived experience is so unique, and we need to be so person-centric. We can't just treat everybody the same. We've got to really understand our individuals, who our people are, what their challenges are, what their anxieties are, and their family context. We can't, as employers, just treat people as employees anymore. We have to get to know the whole them.
Yeah, but it's hard to. I remember back when it happened, I'm leading a company, but you get so immersed in your own world to start with. It's like, everything stops, and then you're like, oh no, like, how am I going to do the homeschooling? How are we going to organize? Everything changes. And it just, for me, I found like just try to take a breath and took a moment, and then you can start to think a bit clearer.
What was the old mental health adage, which is put your own oxygen mask on first. And I think leaders need to recognize that they need to put their own oxygen mask on, get themselves in a position where they can lead, rather than trying to be in the melee with everybody else before they're fixed. So I think it's really important. Even a year on, there's still people suffering from anxiety, struggling with homeschooling, struggling with everything else. And leaders are not unique. Leaders are in the same boat, or a different boat, same storm.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's very true. But it, just to start with, though, it was, back then it was like, these words like pivot, and all of those things, and everyone got so reactive, reacting to a lot of stuff. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw a lot of companies doing great things. A lot of people I spoke to, they were saying to their parents, the parents that of their workers, we don't expect you to do a full day. If you're homeschooling and both parents are working, half a day is kind of what's expected. On the other side of the coin, some people just didn't appreciate any of that stuff.
I've been reading some shocking posts on LinkedIn over the last few weeks and months, I'm sure many have, about organizations that are denying flexible working requests. They're working from home, but they're denying the flexibility to be able to chunk their work up into different ways, or make some reasonable adjustments, so that people aren't fixed 9 to 5. They can do a chunk here and a chunk here. I often talk about, you get your employees now in chunks. You get a chunk at maybe 7 till 9 in the morning, then you get a chunk at 10 till 12, and then you get a chunk from 1 till 3, and then another chunk at 5 till 7. And what you could do is, you just need to readjust your expectations. It's not about presenteeism. It's about output and outcomes of what people are delivering for you, and working with the teams to say, what can you achieve? Because otherwise, all you end up doing is you're putting anxiety, mental health pressure on, and you're not being the best supportive employee that you can be.
It's super hard though to grasp that, isn't it? If you're so used to, you're right, but if you're so used to your team coming in, if you're used to seeing them, I think it took a lot of people a long time to adjust. But then others, I spoke to some people, they were like, I'm never going to do flexible working. I'm never going to work at home. What's all this like video stuff all about? And those same people I spoke to a month or two after, and were like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm never going to go back to 5 days a week anymore. This Teams or Zoom or whatever they were using is just incredible. Why didn't my IT team make me use it before?
Yeah, I know. But I think this lockdown 3 in the UK is a little bit different because the government guideline is being reinforced. Don't go to work. You can work from home. And using my wife as an example, she works for a small business and she was almost made to go in the office all last year. And it's only this year since Christmas where they followed the government advice saying, well, you could work from home. It's just that the excuse was, oh, we didn't have a laptop. Oh, we didn't have enough VPN licenses. Oh, we don't have enough process. And now they do. She's now wondering why she couldn't have done this 8 months ago, because she's working very productively. She's event driven. She's customer service. So she deals with phone calls, inbound emails. It's very easy to judge that she's succeeding because the email box is clear, the calls are logged, the phones are answered, and she can do that from home. And it's disappointing that her employer didn't look deeper a year ago or 9 months ago. But her employer is also one of these people that is so focused on lockdown ending that they can't wait to get everyone back in the office. Again, command and control. I can't see you. I can't trust you. I've paid for this office. I've put all these desks in here. I need someone to sit in them. Rather than actually think about what is best for the team, best for the business, and then thinking about how they could use the office space differently, maybe make it into an open plan drop-in zone where they can have weekly meetings here and there. But I think there's still too many employers that are of that old school ilk. I need to see you. My power comes from having people around me. That's what I'm going to try and break.
It's hard. You're right. It's hard to. It's just because as much as, as you said, leaders are really struggling with it. And if you're used to leading in that way or managing in that way, it's very hard to break. I think also you've got to appreciate that, again, employees want different things as well, right? This is, I guess, important bit about inclusivity. It's some people want to be able to choose how they work, and I think these are the big winners from this. It's, if you're skilled at something and you've been working for a while and you know how to do your job, it's amazing for you, right? Like if you're in the right environment, you can work from home, you can work from anywhere super effectively. Hopefully you get your dose of like human contact at the WeWork style office environment that people will probably end up creating. Whereas others, I think if you're, let's say like a young person, you've just entered the workforce, you could really miss out with all of this stuff. Because if your manager's not coming in, I mean, I learned so much from sitting next to my past bosses, just listening, seeing how they behave.
The water cooler, the coffee chats, the osmosis that occurs just by being around people.
Yeah. So I think however it all lands, I think everyone needs to be thought about, because it's quite easy to think of your own view of the world. It's like, well, I love all this flexibility and my team are going to love it too, but maybe that's not going to be the case.
I've got some business colleagues in my network. We were talking to them the other day, and one person has a disability, and what she's struggling with is her personal assistants that come and help her prepare for the day. That one of them had COVID, one of them struggled with something else. So she is now feeling isolated because she can't get the support she needs to get ready and to be able to perform her job during the day. So she's got challenges there, and she has to now be innovative and plan ahead as to what support she can get and what she can wear and what she can do. And I've got other people I've been talking to about, they have employees that are really struggling because they need supervision. They like that reassurance they're doing okay. They like to be task driven, where they've got a set procedures. And by having this sort of work from home flexibility, they find that too unstructured. And so, for sure, it doesn't suit everybody. And it really is creating a sort of a divided workforce.
Yeah, I think so. Because back in, I guess, what was it between, I lose track of the months now, but between lockdown 1 and 2, they were encouraging people to start to come back to the office. They were like trying to get the city of London open again. And look, obviously in other countries, they haven't had lockdowns. I mean, people have been going in. And of course, we're talking about office-based workers, right? Because there's many people that have actually had to have gone into work. So those of us lucky enough to choose,
supply
NHS,
chain, etc. Yeah, all that
yeah.
sort of stuff. Yeah.
So I spoke to quite a few younger people again who were even actually of all ages, that they went into the office and then they were like, well, no one else is there. So, what's the point almost? So I think that some real thought needs to go into it. And I spoke to a guy this morning, and he's a CEO of a financial services firm. And this is a quite nice story, is that he was actually about to retire because this expectation on him was going and seeing all of his team all of the time across all the different offices, and it got far too much, and he's like, right, I'm done now. But this has brought him a complete new lease of professional life, where he doesn't have to do that anymore. He can do it from home, which I think is really, really cool. It's an interesting one.
I was running some training for a local council somewhere in the country, and the feedback I got was that it was actually incredible that it was now accessible to the councillors and the elected officials who would normally have to travel into the council offices at 6 or 7 in the evening to have these training courses, to have these briefings. And now they can, as they put it, I can have my dinner, sit down in front of my computer for 2 hours and then go back and watch the telly after. So they actually saw it as a bonus. It made them more productive. It allowed them to have better conversations, and they were far more ready and prepared to have these conversations than they would have had by traveling in for an hour or that physical, the physical travel.
What you've got to be careful of, though, is I've spoken to many people who have really felt burnt out. Burnout's been like a real conversation topic, on LinkedIn, and I mean everyone's talking about it. But it's it's a real thing, and I think the danger of being at home is you can roll out of bed, straight to your desk, do your thing, don't go out, and you could find very easily that you just stared at a screen for longer than you would have done normally. And it's very easy just to really get so drained.
I've kind of nicknamed it my polar bear syndrome, because many years ago, probably in the mid-90s, I'm pretty sure it was San Diego Zoo I went to, and they had this beautiful polar bear enclosure, and I remember looking through the big glass portal into this polar bear, and I thought, wow, this polar bear looks so happy. I really don't like zoos because I think, I understand the conservation issue, but at the time that was on the radar, and I thought that polar bear looks okay. I'm quite happy that polar bear looks okay. Then I stood there for 10 minutes and watched this cycle of the polar bear. Literally, it was walking around the pen the same way. It brushed its right cheek of its backside on the tree and rubbed. Then it took 4 paces, brushed its nose on the rock, walked round the rock, dived into the water, pushed off the floor with the right paw, and then climbed out with the left paw, and then repeated that cycle. So superficially, if you just stood there for 5 minutes, you think, oh, that looks like a happy polar bear. Stay there for 10, 15, 20, and you realize this polar bear is going stir crazy. Yeah. So I'm very conscious that I am becoming this polar bear. I live in a 2-bed flat. I roll out. I do this. I do that. Put the kettle on, have a coffee, sit down, get up, go to the loo, make a coffee, sit back down, talk to the screen. And I really am getting to this point where I'm very conscious about being this polar bear. And then someone else chatted the other day, talking about this story about some zoos, they're letting the animals out for a walk around the empty zoo. And so one thing they do is they took the penguins down the tunnel. They get these things where the tunnel goes through the water and you've got all the fish around.
Oh, yeah.
So they took the penguins for a walk through the tunnel under the water. The penguins were loving looking at all the fish, the sharks, everything else going on. And then they marched them back and put them in their pen. And I thought, taking my polar bear analogy one more step, I need to be that penguin. I need to be walking through the tunnel. I need to be looking at the world and seeing more than just my black mirror.
You've got to get on it. So I've been doing this, and I spoke to a lot of people over this fake commute. So it's, you get up, you get dressed, and you go out like you're going out on a commute. So you might go for like a half an hour walk, 40-minute walk or something like that. to get out, and it's great. It gets the blood flowing.
Hmm.
It really gets you energized. Because a lot of people moaned about their commute before lockdown. A lot of people are now like, oh, if that commute comes back, I'm never moaning about you again. Like it's not wasted time. It's you listen to a podcast, thinking time. If you've got a step counter, you get your steps up. But that's I mean, if for me, I think it's so important to try and implement something like that.
Oh, it is.
Morning and evening. And so actually my team,
I went to the dentist the other morning, and I was really excited that I was going to the dentist so I could get out and have a little walk around and stretch and see something different. But yeah, no, you're so right.
We have
it's made kind of worse at the moment because it's dark in the morning and dark in the evening, and I tend to sort of think, well, at 5 o'clock, I think, oh, I've had it. Oh, but at that time, you look outside, it's like cold and wet and miserable. You think, I'll put it off. But yeah, making excuses. But hopefully, spring, the light, maybe up for it.
It's so good. Look, our skin's waterproof. It doesn't matter if it's raining. You get your hat, you get your thing on. So in my team this week, we've got this step challenge. So if you do 7,000 steps, you get 1 point. 10,000, you get 2. And we've got a little competition. But I think, and everyone's probably going to correct me if I'm wrong, it's been good because you're kind of like, you have to tell your team, you're like, oh, I've done 7,000, or no, I need to get out for a couple of thousand steps, So that's been pretty cool, just to get people moving, because it's.
I mean, it's funny you talk about your step counter. I've got an Apple Watch, and it's got the activity thing, and you get this little bzzz when you've done your activity today. And no word of a lie, I was stirring my coffee the other day, and it went bzzz, you've achieved your movement count today. I thought, well, just by stirring my coffee, I've achieved my movement goal.
You need to up that movement count.
I do. It's like ridiculous. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Just on, so some advice. So a lot of. So for people that are not feeling included, is there anything they can do? Like what advice would you give them to speak to their manager, or is there anything that you feel that works well?
Well, first of all, don't sleep on it. Don't let it pass. Whether you can talk to your partner, or if you live with somebody, a friend, just try and create some human contact outside of work first. So create a kind of a sense of belonging to society. Maybe talk to colleagues. Maybe just send a chat, a Slack, whatever. Just ping someone and say, "Fancy a coffee later? Just have a quick chat. How about we do lunch together over Zoom and just have a chat, and then share some anxiety, share some things that are going on, and then maybe talk about how you're feeling excluded from the team, and if they had any ideas. So maybe share peer to peer, and failing that, do something similar to your team lead, to your manager, and just say, look, I just love to have a quick chat. I've got a few things going on. But then it becomes incumbent on the person, like the manager, to respond to that in a positive way. Yes. And so some people have a huge anxiety of being rejected, or that or not being understood, or they almost feel like they're so worried if I'm weak, if I show any sign that I can't cope, how's that going to reflect on me? I want my job. I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about the company being able to afford me. I'm worried about this. And if I say I can't do it, how's that going to make me? So there's a lot of that going on there. I think leaders need to help lead that conversation and invite and understand the anxieties people are facing. And if someone does reach out, be really, really receptive and say, right, let's make some time. Of course, listen, talk. How can I help? What would you like me to do?
Yeah.
Do a lot of listening. And start with a yes. I'm sure we can figure that out. Yes, I understand. What's your idea here? So again, really using that sort of active listening, leading, asking how you can help. I think that's what leaders should be focusing on. But I've spoken to people, and they're so anxious about weakness, being weak, not coping.
Well, especially if you're in an industry where the people are losing their jobs, or the company's downsized, you just don't want to be the next one, right? So if you are feeling burnt out or not included in, or you're really struggling, that fear of and that anxiety of actually telling your manager, hey, I'm really struggling, it's such a big hurdle to overcome.
I think because you're isolated, you can't always see the body language. You can't necessarily see your manager later in the day and just get a smile out of them, or haven't got that human contact. So sometimes all these conversations are so isolated, and there's no way of judging how that's played out unless you ask again.
And also, I think important to remember is that leaders are just a human, like all people, and
Yeah.
all going through the same thing. So, and I think the amazing thing right now is most people are being like really kind and appreciate that people are in a difficult spot. And I think when you approach your manager or your leader, I mean, most are going to really want to help, I would say.
Yeah, I suppose most of the people I talk to work for large organizations, and most of these organizations and people I'm talking to are having a very positive led leadership type experience out of their company. So obviously I'm talking to a lot of people with a certain level of privilege. But I think if we go to small and medium enterprises, businesses that maybe have not adapted, we know there are toxic cultures out there. We know there are organizations that aren't forward thinking and adaptive in this way. So I don't have percentages, but there is a significant proportion of the UK working population that aren't having a great experience.
True.
And aren't being looked after.
True. Leads us nicely to one of the questions, actually. We had a bunch emailed in, and this is interesting. So we talked about approaching leaders, but it does take a certain degree of courage, I would say. And if you're an introvert, how do you do that? How do you get seen? So I guess, this leads into, if you're struggling, plucking up the courage, but also if you're wanting that promotion, if you want to get noticed, but you're too introvert to organize these virtual coffees and catch up with senior management, it's tough, right? I mean, what have you seen
it is. I get. Think about the word introvert. I think if we look at people's introvertness and extrovertness on a spectrum, on a scale, and often I think we confuse introvertness with being shy, retiring, unable to speak out. There are many people who identify as introvert. I identify as introvert because I get energy from self, not from a crowd, from a group, and that's where I identify as introvert, about where I get my energy from. So, but I think one of the things I've learned is by having conversation with people is many people have anxieties. Many people are worried about being seen. Many people are worried about speaking out. So you're not alone. You're not the only one that's feeling that way. And I think that if you're nervous, you're worried, find a kindred spirit, someone who you perceive is also quiet, also worried about speaking out. Share some lived experience. I'm anxious about this, so am I. Oh, it's good to have someone to talk to. And then building that shared experience, bringing other people into that group and expanding that feeling where you get to talk about it. And suddenly you realize you've got this power of everybody all feeling the same, and you're not alone. So you can be seen in that way by creating this amplification, or asking somebody who you trust to amplify for you or advocate or speak on your behalf. Create that space where you can be seen and heard.
Yeah. So almost create a nice support network around you of whether it's within the company or external to really start to be able to talk to, trust in.
And if you're a colleague, we talk about allyship. We often think about allyship in terms of LGBT, race, whatever. We can also be an ally to people who are maybe not able to speak out. If you're a colleague and you think, well, actually, I haven't heard from so-and-so for a while, or actually last time I saw them on camera, they looked a bit kind of run down, they didn't look very happy, they didn't speak much. A great colleague can be a great ally by reaching out and say, look, I saw you on the call earlier. You look like you wanted to say something. Can I help?
Yeah, 100%. Let me just put this another question in, actually, because it's actually exactly.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Good. And then just to set the scene, I mean, clearly, so many people, if you're moving jobs in the last almost year, it's been virtual, right? I mean, all virtual hiring. Now, joining a company virtually is quite interesting. Like no one's taken your coat, no one's made you the coffee, haven't tried the biscuits, all of that stuff. So. So this person was just interested, like how can I make my new colleagues that have joined virtually feel included?
I think I would say is create new stories, because often when we get together in our groups and we always talk about the old days. We talk about what we did do. We talked about all these things, and people who've joined the company virtually haven't got that experience of the Christmas party, the away day, the team chats, the way we used to do stuff around the cooler. So I think it's creating new stories that we can all sit around the campfire, if you like, and have that feeling. So I think, almost like re-baseline, say, right, well, this is lockdown, this is how we're working remotely. Let's not keep talking about the old days of what the office was like and how we used to do all this stuff. Let's talk about what we're doing now. And that is actively involving people. If they're confident, ask them to tell their story. Tell me about yourself if you fancy doing that, or write a little paragraph and sharing it. Spotlighting them. Okay, not everybody wants to have their face dead center in camera and speak out, but there's maybe a subtle way of getting a little bio of them, introducing them.
Do you know, I think
feel part of the team that way.
No, definitely. And I think this is all virtual now, but it would have been the same anyway. Like it's nice to make friends with people, networking, make them feel included, because you want to build and work in a high performing team, right? And you want to make friends with people, and you need to spend time with people to make friends with them. And just because, it's over a camera like this, or even the good old phone, I mean, there's so many amazing things now to keep us connected.
I was talking to a D&I team in a large organization the other day, and they say, where are their roles at the moment is to get some merch, a T-shirt, a cap, or a mug or something. And what they do is they buy 100 things and ship them out to their teams. They've got the budget because they were spending this on something else. Now they've got the budget. So all of a sudden on a Friday, a baseball cap will arrive in the post, and they'll go on their team's meeting. They've all got their baseball caps on, and they've got their mug, and they've got so little things like that create this team spirit, and it reminds you that the company's still there. I've seen also companies, they send fruit baskets or other things just randomly to their teams. Just to say, look, we're still here for you. We're not ignoring you. We know you're there. And you wake up one morning and go, wow, how good do you feel? Somebody's thought about you.
Yeah, we do quite a bit. I mean, we've been doing a 2 p.m. call for half an hour the whole way through, but completely unstructured, COVID-free zone, where people have we've just been able to chat, which has been really interesting. Another nice thing we've done is we have a little coffee subscription. So for those coffee drinkers, they get a little bag of coffee once a month, and so try to do like nice little things that have made people feel included, and we've got something to talk about. And
what I've done is I've bought myself a lot of little desk toys. So I've got my little Henry the Hoover, which is my screen cleaner. I've got some COVID stress balls, and I've got a little Mini Cooper here, and I've got some finger boxing gloves, so I can have a little finger boxing game. So I've got lots of little toys that I can play with. Just when I'm on calls and we're doing this all the time, I can bring my stress ball out, I can play with something. So I've got that tactile kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it just before we went on air, actually. I mean, and I know you've done this as well. I went crazy on tech. I mean, the amount of stuff that I've got now, the lights, the camera, nowhere near as good as your stuff. But again, I've just ended up getting so much. And then as we talked about that, we just realized, appreciated that the big thing here also is just so many people and families just haven't been able to. Oh, I love that. A lot of people haven't been able to afford good tech. They don't have good internet,
for sure.
and that's been really tough. Certainly if people are homeschooling and trying to work, and
there's a massive tech divide, whether it's broadband, quality of broadband, infrastructure in the home. We bought our homes thinking they're for raising a family. So we've got multiple generations sitting around a kitchen table, or we've got parent one in the bedroom, one parent two in the study, child 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the kitchen table, on the telly. And we're all competing with broadband. We're all competing for resources around the home, and it's not easy. If you work for different companies and you're at different stages of your life, everyone's competing, and there's no IT support at home. So if your broadband goes down or you've got a bit of a PC issue, it's like,
Really? When we're working on business or personal internet faults at Virgin or BT now, would you?
No.
It's crazy. But I had, we've got a like a living room thing, but I'm like, no, I'm not having anyone around my house right now. I mean, I converted that into my little workspace. And so it's interesting. It's just reimagining, which is quite cool though. It's just reimagining, the different spaces. And also for work, our office, that's really, we've completely redone that. We have a new space, and it's actually more like a home, where we have these different nice working areas, because you can't do video calls sitting next to each other. Like, these open plan offices don't work. You end up shouting on the video, and if someone's sitting next to you, you're trying to shout, and so that's all quite cool. And I think as that all goes on, it's gonna be interesting to see where it all lands.
Yeah, I think organizations, companies need to also think about just the working environment staff have and their people have, because we invest in workplace ergonomics. We do workplace assessments. We make sure they've got the right angle on their chair and it's fully adjustable. We've got monitors that move. We put all this effort into making sure our employees don't get stiff necks and backs and elbows, proper chairs. And now we've had people for a year sitting on their sofa with a laptop on their knees, crunched over a little coffee table, propping it up on 2 cardboard boxes on the kitchen sink so they can get the right height. I'd like to think that some of the great companies, I have spoken to some great companies, they're giving everybody an allowance for not just their computer, but for their working environment, their keyboard, their mouse, their chair. And I think the longer this goes on, we've got to recognize that what we were spending on premise, we've now got to push out to our team to make sure they can work.
Oh yeah, I mean, every business I speak to is thinking about reducing office space. But remember, a lot of companies also, a lot of people have been used to, again, office-based workers, but working like this anyway. Certainly international companies. And one big trend I've noticed from my headhunting this last year is that so many companies have said, we don't mind where the person's based. So before, let's say the job had to be in London or Frankfurt or something like that, they've said, we just want the best person, go source across Europe, for example, which has been amazing, right? Because it's meant, larger talent pools, therefore more diverse talent pools, more diverse hiring, all of those things. And so, you have a scenario where you've got like the CFO in London, you've got the CEO in Copenhagen, I don't know, and you've got these real international companies, which I think it's just so fantastic. And this kind of stuff is going to be the norm. It might be you meet them once a month.
It is, but I think there's a divide around between forward-thinking great organizations and ones that are kind of marking time, waiting for us all to go back. I was looking at an advert, I think it was on LinkedIn, a JD was posted, and it said, this role is currently remote, but you will be expected to go to London 2 days a week and Newcastle 2 days a week when you can. It's like, so why do you have to put that now? Why are you deciding that this job can't be done remotely when it can be done remotely to start with? Why don't we evaluate what's going on in 6 months' time and say, when the office work opens up, there'll be the opportunity to co-work either in the office or from home, depending on where you are. Because if I was looking at this role thinking, well, if I lived in South Wales, this looked like a great job. But now you're telling me I might have to go to London or Newcastle twice a week. Well, there's no point in me applying. So all this power of being able to source people from anywhere, and the first thing you do is ruin it by saying, well, actually, now we're going to want you in the office. It's like, well, okay, that was not for me then.
There are a bunch. I've been doing one in the US at the moment where we can source anywhere. And actually, most candidates have asked us, when this goes back to normal, which I'm never really sure it's going to be the normal you think it was, what is my working week going to look like? And it's quite hard to answer, because right now they're saying, well, you're going to go live in Seattle, work from, it doesn't matter where you are. But then they look at where the office locations are, and it's like, if they require me to start going on a regular basis, suddenly this job goes from like really cool, super flexible, to how many miles? Yeah, like it's tough. So I still don't think that everyone's really thought through that.
I'd like to think, this is me putting my magic hat on and thinking, when we went into this, it was kind of like a click, wasn't it? It was kind of like, now we had like a 6 week phase where we just did it.
Yeah.
I'd like to think as we come out, it's going to be an evolution. So to go back to there is no old normal. We just have what we do now. This is how we work, and how we work may evolve. It's not going to go like that again. I don't think. So
No.
when people are saying what's work going to look like in a year's time, well, I'd like to think work will evolve over the course of that year. We're not going to have this magic. Okay, if you're working for an organization that says, right, you can go back to work and get into work. Yes, there are some exceptions. But I think most companies will be thinking, right, this has worked. Let's take the best of what we've had, the best of what we've got now, and make it better for the future. Let's blend that to create best of best.
Yeah. And
that's what I hope.
And I think that's happening as you said, there's a scale, right? I mean, you've got some really forward-thinking companies, and they could be big or small. I mean, but people that are really thinking about what the most effective way for their workers to work is. There's also this financial driver that we discussed around, if you don't need a huge office in a big city, why have it? I mean, so there's that financial driver. The other thing is, again, like everyone wants to work differently. And so maybe I spoke to one company, they're never going to have an office again, ever. That's their thing, right? That's what they decided. It's all virtual working, which is fine. I did a poll on LinkedIn a while ago, and I think it was, up in the 80% of people wanted the office as part of their life in some way. Yeah, so you're not going to want to work for that virtual company. So it's that
a mindset and a paradigm shift as a human race, if you like. We need to let go or evolve or be happy with living in that world. I mean, if you look at a lot of startups, a lot of companies have been online, digital, remote only. You probably remember the days where everyone had to have a file server, and I can't put my stuff in the cloud. I can't cope with that. And then suddenly, thank goodness we put everything in the cloud.
I was like dial-up connection, and I went on holiday. I'm like trying to get some service somewhere.
So whilst the young people today are being obviously impacted by this, their exams and their education, everything else, they're going to be entering the workplace as kind of like, we've dealt with being online, we can do this. In my business, there's just me as a person, but I've got an accountant, I've got a marketing specialist, I've got associates. We work on different projects together. I'm an associate for another company. So I've got a whole matrix of network of people I work with. Many people I've never met face to face, and I don't need to. So my business probably has 20 or 25 people that I interact with as part of it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I don't need to meet these people. So the new businesses are going to evolve in that way. But it's just the businesses that maybe they can't because they've got a physicality requirement, or the businesses that are locked into premise, or they're locked into a mindset. I think that's the thing. It's evolving. And if you're working for a business that doesn't meet your needs, evaluate whether they're the right business for you, whether that's the right organization.
Yeah, it's funny actually you mentioned that on kids, because I started hearing myself say it, and I always promised myself I wouldn't. It's like you start thinking, when I was young, when I was at school, when I was at uni, it was different. I had the best time, and then I'm thinking, well, hold on, like my 6-year-old daughter knows her way around the computer, amazingly. She's like on Zoom, she's doing the little chat and and that's her thing, that's her reality. It's just her reality. It's neither better or worse. I guess it's just that's how she's growing up, and that's what she's learning. And
I've been watching some of these young people being interviewed on telly. How does this affect your exams, your schoolwork? And I appreciate they obviously interview hundreds of different children or young people, and they get the best soundbite. But I'm really kind of enlightened and inspired by the maturity of what they're coming out with, about how they see this as impacting, how the situation is damaging their opportunities, how they won't be thwarted by it, and how they're going to overcome this. And I think these young people around 14, 15, 16, I thought, wow, there's such maturity there. Such maturity.
It's amazing because everyone struggles with being uncomfortable, But if you're comfortable, if you can learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable, it's such a powerful thing, because who knows what's going to happen in life? You take the knocks with the good times, and if you're used to that from an early age, maybe you build up a stronger resilience. I don't know, but they're certainly learning to cope with these different things.
Yeah, I learned over the last few years, the CIA. So C for control. If I can't control something, I influence. I can't influence something. I have to accept or advocate. You know, so I quickly move from situations I can't control, I have no influence over, and become comfortable in where I am. And it's my choice, and I have the power in myself of what I can do to influence myself and make change. But I don't blame the situation. So I try and take back control. And I think that's being comfortable and adapting to your environment and then making change from there.
Super important. Super important. One last question I want to end with, and I've spoken to a few people about this, which I think I love this. It's like, when people say bring your authentic self to work, do they really mean it? Or do they mean bring your authentic self to work as long as you believe what I believe? So I think like US elections are a great example of it, right? I mean, what was it? I don't know, a bit more than 50% voted one way and then the other, right? So you've got to think that depending on what state you're in, you probably have a Trump or Democrat supporter sitting in your team, right? How comfortable are you with that? And you should be, right? You welcome all people. So I just thought that was fascinating, because I think most people, you say it, I'm not sure really they're whether that really mean.
There's this old adage, that never talk about politics and religion in polite company. And I've heard people say that if you can't talk about politics and religion, then what does that say about the culture you work in and the people you work with? So it's almost challenging to say, be comfortable being uncomfortable, be open to discussion, open to discord, and open to respecting each other's views and beliefs, and having engaging conversations rather than a battle of who's more right all the time, which is what we do. So I think it's about evolving workplace culture around emotional intelligence, about being curious, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and learning from each other, and not seeing someone else's view as a threat. And also recognizing that your views aren't mainstream, and maybe they're not to be shared. If you want to have those views, that's fine, but they're not for work views. They're not safe for work. But I think a lot of people use authenticity as a justification for being hateful, rude. It's what I believe, the YOLO type thing. And you see it on Instagram, you see it on people, young people, influencers say, I'm authentic. I can say what I feel because I'm authentic to it. I think people hide behind this authenticity to hide hate, to hide discrimination, to hide bias and bigotry. So I think it's about being kind. It's about being generous. It's about being fair. And it's about trying not to be right all the time. It's about learning about each other and sharing views and opinions. An opinion doesn't mean to say you're right. It's just speak from the I believe. What do you think? And then opening up.
Because also, you have to accept that people have different views and perspectives, and you're right. A lot of the time, people want to argue or convince someone that their view is wrong or my view is right. You don't need to have to do that. I mean, my friends will laugh at me because I love a good argument, but like I genuinely, when I appreciate that people have different perspectives and different views, and I'm really cool with that. As long as it's not hateful and racist or homophobic, etc.
But it's human nature. Most of what we do will say, I mean, I'm doing it now. I'm trying to persuade you of my opinion. I'm telling you my opinion. I'm trying to persuade you through examples, through metaphors that I'm right. I'm trying to do that. And we do that. Most conversations revolve around me telling you something I believe and getting you to agree, and you try and tell me something back and get me to agree. How about if you said, okay, keep going, tell me more, keep going, I'm still not getting it. And then asking you questions of something I disagree with, so that I can actually get to the point where I either understand, or I've asked you so many questions that you start going, now you've asked me that question, maybe I'm not so sure either. And you do that through the curiosity, through questioning. And I think rather than, because we look at the big, the Brexit, the Trump, we look at all these big debates, vax, anti-vax, and we end up in these two camps. And there's a gulf. We're miles apart. How do we get back to the center ground where we have this discord? We don't. We stick here.
You don't, because you surround yourself generally
in an echo chamber.
Yeah, you think people think the same on social media. Generally, you're following people that have a similar view to you, so you don't really listen. And then when you do come up against someone or speaking to someone with a completely contrasting view, it's so easy to slip into that. I want to tell you what I think. I don't, rather than I'd love to hear what you think.
We demonize them. They're not in our tribe. They're not in our in group.
Yeah.
I've believed it so strongly that whatever you're saying must be a lie. You must be misguided, and that's the problem with these echo chambers and cohorts or tribes, whatever you want to describe it. We want to feel that sense of belonging. If I'm a Man City supporter and I meet a Man United supporter, I've got to treat them like the enemy. If they come from Liverpool, they're even worse. If I sort of say, "Oh, that was a great goal you scored the other day," I'll be burnt at the stake as a heathen.
Oh, yeah.
So we've kind of got to stick to our beliefs, or we get shunned out of our own tribe.
Yeah, but this is what I've quite liked. I don't know if you've joined Clubhouse yet. You know, the new.
I've dipped my toe in it, and I thought very interesting, but I've got some real work to get on with. This is just people talking. What else are they doing?
You can, well, that's it. It's like a live podcast. But what I haven't done that much, but what I've enjoyed about it was you don't know who's on the group or in the rooms. And so I've listened to people that have got a completely different view, perspective than I have. And I found it really interesting because I've been able to, and maybe you get that from Twitter as well if you look hard enough. But it's not the echo chamber that you have on some of the other social media sites, which is the one thing I quite like about it.
I suppose going back to this mental health thing, I spend all day talking to people online.
Yeah.
Switch off, family time, chill out, cook something, watch a bit of telly, pop a box set on. The last thing I want to do is put my headphones on in the evening and do this. During the day, I haven't got enough time to carve it out. It's another distraction, and
you're right. You do have to. No, you're right. You're right. You really have to think about it. I've been diarising much more exercise time than Clubhouse time for sure. Makes me feel great when I'm doing
I can understand it. If you're going for a walk with your headphones in, then Clubhouse is a good thing to have a laugh with when you're doing it and join in. Yeah. Maybe that's my problem. I don't diarise in exercise time, so I don't have any Clubhouse time.
Get the walk in. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's all good. There's so much stuff around now, but it's just nice. It's nice to listen, watch, see what people are up to. I think it's good. The discussion's great. So, well, thank you so much for joining me. We've done almost 50 minutes, which is great. Always nice speaking to you. So, thank you very much. I've
enjoyed it. It's been good topics. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for watching. And see you all soon. See ya.